Good morning. My name is Carlo Femia, First American's New York State Agency Manager. I'd like to thank you all for joining today's virtual event. I hope that you and your families are safe during these challenging times. I've been given the privilege to introduce the next two panels. Our first panel, which will be on digital transformation and navigating local nuances, will be moderated by Charlotte Brown of Qualia. And the panelists will include Phil O'Hara from Municipal Data Services, as well as Patrick Rowe from Charles Jones and DataTrace. So take it away, Charlotte.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Charlotte Brown, Director of Product at Qualia, the leading digital real estate closing platform. Thank you all for taking the time to join us. We're very pleased to partner with the New York State Land and Title Association to bring you this panel discussion on digital transformation and innovation in Northeast real estate. It's been a historic time for the real estate industry. The pandemic has changed how we all do business and rapidly pushed us towards a new digital paradigm. As consumer expectations continue to drive changes in the process of buying and selling homes, how swiftly title and escrow companies and attorneys innovate and adapt will likely determine their long-term success. So I'm excited to introduce two extremely experienced insiders who are here today to discuss the advancements and trends in the unique New York and Northeast landscape. Pat Rowe, General Manager of Charles Jones, as well as the New York office of DataTrace, and Philip O'Hara, Executive Vice President at Municipal Data Services. So welcome everyone. Pat, please take a few minutes to introduce yourself.
Great, thanks Charlotte. Really nice to be here with you. Good morning everyone. I'm Pat Rowe. I'm General Manager, as Charlotte mentioned, for both Charles Jones and DataTrace New York. Been with DataTrace New York for coming up on 3 years, and my experience with Charles Jones is closing in on 25. So I've been around the block here. I have previously worked at other public record information companies, and so that's where I've spent much of my career. I've been active in the Pennsylvania Land Title Association and the New Jersey Land Title Association, and until it was merged into the State Regulatory Action Committee, was co-chair of the Alta Public Records Committee. The primary mission for us really is reducing risk for our customers, and we've leveraged technology to do a lot of that. We are, as far as I know, the only geographically indexed title plant in the Northeast on the Charles Jones side, and in New York, about to launch a pre-ACRIS historical index an image repository that will allow single seat production. Very excited to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, thank you. And Phil, please, what would you like to share with the crowd?
Good morning. First of all, thanks for having me. I was excited to be a part of this when, Andrew Zankel, this was his brainchild, this whole title tech, I thought it was a great idea from the inception. So to be a part of it, again, thank you so much for having me. A little history on me, like Pat, I've been in the business for forever. My father had a search company in Queens from way back when, and all through high school and college, I was a part-time examiner down in the Hall of Records, Queens on Suffolk Boulevard. And then when I graduated college, I stayed on as an examiner. And I worked as an examiner for about 6 years after college, full-time for the company. And then I left the business to get into sales. And when I got into sales, we didn't have any salespeople. So I left the business. And then in 2004, I came back into the business and sales for an early identification of Pat's company, actually, Beretta Realty Skyline, and started doing sales there. So I've been in sales in this space since 2004. My prior company had some experience in the Northeast, but now I've been here at Municipal Data for 2 years. We only work in New York in all 62 counties of New York on the tax and municipal side. So I'll kind of, if you will, gear my answers towards New York as we are New York centric, if that's all right. And maybe Pat will maybe speak a little bit more to Northeast as a whole. So I think that might be best. But again, thank you, and and glad to be here.
Absolutely. Well, it's an absolute honor to be amongst two veterans of this scene, really. So I'm curious. I'm going to get started right away, jump into the questions. And I'm really interested to hear about, what's happening in the Northeast right now. What are the challenges facing clients that are unique to this time, unique to the Northeast? Yeah, perhaps we could start with hearing how Charles Jones is addressing the nuances.
Sure. Thanks, Charlotte. I think that, by and large, the area is facing issues that are similar to other, spaces nationally. Staffing is a big issue for the title space. Certainly, we've experienced that at DataTrace and Charles Jones, and I know our customers have as well. We've been very fortunate in the pandemic to have experienced some very high volume on the purchase and particularly on the refi side. And so staffing remains a big challenge. Remote work, despite all the benefits, has some downsides as well. So, that's been a challenge for us. Locally, I think, we've probably experienced more government agency closures that are challenging for both us and for our customers. The 13 original colonies are a little bit more challenging in which to collect data. And so we still have a fair amount of feet on the street that we use to fulfill orders for our customers. We collect data where we can, structure it, normalize it. That created great opportunities for us during the pandemic to have, continued order processing. We also access government agency websites after we vet them. Often they have gaps and holes. And then again, feet on the street. So government agency closures have been, kind of a big challenge for us. We have, automated a lot of that request processing and tried to post closing agency status so that our customers have a better sense of, where some orders might be kind of gummed up in the works. From a local Northeast perspective, unless we wanted to get into some of the nuance, like Connecticut being a municipal-based system rather than a county-based land record system, creates some challenges certainly regionally. The unique statutory animals of the state-owned tideland riparian rights in New Jersey, a statewide judgment lien in New Jersey, and of course, multi-jurisdiction taxing authorities in New York and Pennsylvania. I think, New York has over 4,000 taxing authorities. PA is, probably just behind them with 3,000. So just getting out and getting to those spaces, if we can't collect that information, continues to be a challenge for us and consequently for our customers as well.
I'm curious to hear, what's it been like on your side, Pat? Or excuse me, Phil. Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, it's been challenging. Again, we're focused here in New York on the tax and municipal side. So to kind of what Pat opened up with, which has been just the massive challenges for me, Pat, and the others in our space, is the municipalities closing, particularly early on in the pandemic, and then sporadically throughout, and dealing with that and how to manage that. For example, one town of Hempstead, where a very large town in Nassau, where historically we were able to go in and do the searches ourselves, as Pat's company as well, able to do the search ourselves. And then come mid-March, April, or sit thereabouts, they rightfully so kicked us out of the building, right? They didn't want us in their building, which now we're submitting, and they're not staffed for it, meaning the municipality is not staffed for it. And just getting a huge backlog. And eventually somebody, Mary Ellen from our company, reached out and said, would they let the municipality, would let the search companies have access to their online system for a fee, which they agreed to, which then allowed us to get us and our competitors get a lot of this work out for our clients. So like dealing with challenges like that, whereas again, municipalities just closing down and with no thought, with no warning. We had one recently where a small little village closed on us, and they had a positive test, and we had a client losing their minds. Well, it was really their client losing their mind, and just trying to work with them, and communicate with them. In that particular case, I actually had to get on the phone with the client's client and just walk him through what the delay was. And trying to remind people that we are in the middle of a pandemic, and we are relying on information from these municipalities, and we are at their mercy at times, we are at their mercy, and just dealing through that, and again, communicating with our clients and working through this just amazingly difficultly challenging time for all of us has been interesting. So those are some of the nuances we're dealing with.
I'm sure, Phil, that situation also creates, backlog as well.
Yeah.
Historically, we're used to kind of, doing work as it comes in, and Hempstead's a great example of, hey, we had this pile of orders that we then had to get to. So, managing expectations, as Phil described, not just for our customers, but for their customers, has been one of the biggest challenges for sure.
Yeah, because me and Pat love when that stuff gets backed up, because we're the ones who get yelled at.
Of course.
We don't really love that.
It's something we saw as well. I mean, I was so impressed in the early days how communicative all the vendors were, how all the search providers, title insurers, things were changing day to day. And I remember working with our clients amongst that. And I think something that really struck me with this industry is how much people wanted to stay open, make it work. People were flexible. And I think that's a testament to what you're both saying in terms of, communicating actively with your clients and just letting them know what's going on and that you have their best interest at heart.
Yeah, our resiliency has been tested.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, and Phil, I'm going to go back to you. What are some of the challenges that you face when you're trying to bring on new customers? What does that process look like for you?
Right now, obviously, I'll give you an example, right? About a week and a half ago, we were fortunate to pick up a large new client, and as I'm on the phone speaking with this potential new client, you kind of get through the, small talk of how's the family, this and that and everything. And then the first question, literally the first question that she asked me, this happened to be the software that they were on is a Tracker Pro. The first question she asked me, after the small talk was, do you integrate with Tracker Pro? And unfortunately, the answer is yes, we do. We have a strong integration. So yes, but I imagine if my answer had been no, it would have been a very short conversation. So that would be, again, that's just an example of literally a week and a half ago of onboarding a new client. And then, of course, after that question is, how are you dealing with the various, closures and what's your turn time in these areas? And again, as we were saying earlier, just communicating what we're all dealing with and trying, to set the proper expectations as we start our relationship. So, that's kind of what we're experiencing now as we onboard new clients during this, again, interesting time.
Yeah. Pat, what about your team? How are you thinking about bringing on new clients?
Yeah, not a whole lot different from Phil. We credential our customers just to make sure they're legit. And generally that's not a problem. It's a fairly quick process, but most of the questions that we tend to get, consistent with Phil's answers, it's around service level, right? How quickly can you perform work in a particular area? How do I receive my work, whether it's through an integration, like Qualia, or just, old-fashioned, email or portal systems that we both support. And fees, right? Folks are always interested about what they're going to pay for these services. We try to establish those points of contact for critical support people, whether it's client services and sales, to help guide folks through that process, whether it's through an integration like Qualia or a more agnostic, sort of traditional old school method. And really, what we've tried to do in both Datatrace and Charles Jones is just to, over time, through investments in technology, to drive down that service level to, try and remain competitive, and hopefully be one step ahead of my friend Phil and other providers in the space. So basically, how fast can I get it? What's it going to cost? And who do I talk to are pretty much those onboarding questions.
Well, this is a really great segue into my next question I had for you both, which is really what are the technological changes and improvements that you're looking at making in your business or have made in recent months to increase that efficiency? Because that is in any conversation about titles, how do you drive down that service time? So yeah, Pat, you want to start and then we can move over to Phil?
Thanks, Charlotte. Yeah, we've really spent a lot of time, particularly over the last year, with investments in information security. We've learned that not for the first time, it's more of a journey than a destination. But with all the fraudsters out there, really whether it's phishing or hacking or social engineering to try to lift some escrow funds from our customer base in the title space, there's increased scrutiny, and rightfully so, around making sure that there's no holes in the boat or any unlocked windows, whatever analogy you want to drive. And we've been committed to not being the weakest link in that chain. It's a big deal for us, and we've invested a lot of time and money. We support, all of our production is now remote. And multi-factor authentication through a virtual private network, is standard operating procedure for us. And we've really made investments to move all of our infrastructure to the cloud, both DT New York and Charles Jones. Charles Jones happens to be up in the AWS cloud, and DT is in Azure. But that's allowed us to leverage some of the security features allowed or offered by cloud services. It allowed us to essentially move out of our offices last March, virtually overnight, and allows for a lot of technical elasticity when our customer base grows or our suite of applications grow. So those are really two lasting or strong principles for us. In terms of locally, what we've really visibly delivered to our customers, because of course that's all sort of behind the scenes. We've focused on trying to address one of the earlier points that we discussed around managing expectations, to look at our historical data from a particular product to be able to deliver point of order time estimates or ETAs. To help manage those expectations. I'm happy to say we rolled that in Pennsylvania first, and it's dramatically reduced the number of calls that we've received on some of the products where we have longer cycle times that aren't traditionally like within an hour, within a day. So that's been very helpful. And we continue to use, as we have for years, artificial intelligence and capturing human decisions. So that once they've been repeated a number of times, we don't have to bother that human with that decision as well, all in an effort to reduce the amount of production time it takes from the order inception to getting it back to our customer base.
Well, that's a fine suite of improvements. I think that movement to the cloud and security, it's just one of those investments that'll continue to pay off. But it's also really exciting to hear about some of that innovation you all are attacking. And I'm curious, Phil, for MDS, what does it look like? How are you thinking about technology? What improvements have you all made?
Yeah, it's been, as Pat said, it's an ongoing effort all the time. And then this year, all of a sudden, we're here. We have an office here where I'm sitting now in Staten Island, and where we had a large production team, and then overnight you have to close it down. So, being able to have the technology in place, which then, and to, I guess, develop that technology over that immediate period of getting people and equipment in place to get them, to be able to work remotely off site has, was a lot, and it was a big investment, and, obviously it worked out for us. And then just again, back to focusing on some of the integrations that have been a big help, as far as, with, as we discussed earlier, thank God everybody's been quite busy, right? The numbers have shot up across the board for everybody. And having these integrations in place, whereas we can now, whereas historically people used to maybe call in or back in the fax or whatever, or email in orders, whereas now we get so many of our orders via these integrations, which is really, so now when we get the order, we can just ingest the order into our system. Nobody needs to sit and set the order up, type it up, select the company, select what items are being ordered within that order. With these integrations, the work automatically comes into our platform, if you will. Nobody has to sit there and say, they want a COE or a fire on this particular one. It's automatically selected for us via the integrations, which then just allows us to immediately get the work out to our workforce, right? And then when the work comes back, even you look back years ago where, when I was an examiner, I remember people would come back at the end of the day and there was packages and you put the title in the package and then went off to that client. Sometimes even went in the wrong package, and that was just a nightmare. Whereas now with these integrations, right, the work gets scanned in and without anybody doing anything, it is immediately sent to that client. And not just sent to the client, but also sent to the client to that particular file, into that file cabinet. So with that, it has just helped us, these type of, investments from us and our partners, our current ones, and we are in the process now of building the exact same integration with Qualia, which just really does help us, streamline so much of this work. And it was an investment, obviously, that both parties put in, a while back, and it has paid off huge dividends now as we are dealing with this incredible, busy time, during this. Yeah.
Something you both spoke to about the technology you're investing is taking out repetitive human actions or, areas where you can make a mistake needlessly. Yeah. And I think, that type of seamless integration, investment in AI, those types of things, I mean, we're just going to see more and more in that. And it's going to be table stakes. You have to be integrated. And it's great because we've seen so many people able to take on a lot more business because of these seamless solutions during this huge spike, which has been definitely exciting for the industry.
Yeah, because some just going back to something Pat had said earlier was like workforce. When you can get, it's hard finding good people in this space, in this industry, right? That understand it. So when you can use technology to lessen the amount of work of that, create capacity for that employee, it now allows you to repurpose them and absorb more bandwidth, more work. So again, these investments in technology have just been a lifesaver, if you will.
Absolutely. You've both somewhat spoken to this at different points in terms of integration and what's important to your clients, but I'm curious, how do you partner with them to keep up with consumer demand? Kind of what does that partnership look like?
Pat, you want to grab it or?
Sure, be happy to start. Thanks, Phil. Well, Stacy, I think that, generally time is the commodity of the title market, right? Rates are fixed. And so the faster that you can get your work done, the more margin that you're going to pocket as a business owner. And so we aid to help our customers. Customers, it's about accuracy as well, but their customers really want speed and a lot of pressure from the lending community in particular. So the integrations that Phil spoke to, right, integrating with all major software partners certainly saves minutes, right, from our expectation. As you mentioned, Stacy, it also does eliminate duplicate keystrokes and transposition errors, right, potentially getting just the wrong stuff. So we sort of consider that level one integration. Really what we're focusing on and have delivered in certain areas is field level integration, where the work that we're performing traditionally, right, a piece of paper and recently a PDF that's delivered, even though we've keyed it, our customers now have to key it, the certain aspects of that search result back into their system. So we've been focusing efforts on delivering XML level discrete data. We have the analogy I've used is we need to partner with our customers and with our software partners like Qualia. If we're a FedEx delivery company delivering a search to your house, we can put it on your front step, right? But if you want us to unpack it and load it into your house, we need a lot of help. You need to tell us where that's going to go. We have been able to deliver this to certain large customers and look forward to working with both our direct customers as well as our integration partners to deliver that data to the place where it belongs to further reduce the amount of friction and lag time that can be created. So just chipping away, continuing to chip away at the amount of time that takes. Extending that FedEx analogy, one of the other areas that we are actively working on is being able to embed a chat link, right? So we all deal with kind of this asynchronous world where, I have a question on an order, I'm going to email it, it's going to sit in someone's box. Traditional customer service, where that customer service person would then, when they get to it, direct it to the fulfillment partner in the field or in the office who had done that search. So much like you don't call a FedEx, the FedEx company when you want to know where your package is, you have a confirmation link with a confirmation email with a link. You click that to see where it is. We're working on giving our customers options so that they can choose, if they'd like, to be able to click on the order status, determine exactly where it is, get, if it's in progress, can pull down information. If it's a 3-part, order and 1 part's ready, you can grab it now. And to be able to essentially put in a chat and say, hey, I have a question on this, and that will be automatically routed to that fulfillment partner, the individual who has the best information to answer that question, and they'll answer that question directly. So that's in progress. We don't have that now, but other areas where we're trying to innovate, again, is just reducing cycle time by the introduction of artificial intelligence and repeated human decisioning to just bring down that production time for our customers.
That's very exciting. I think transparency is something, it's so helpful at driving efficiency. And when people just know where something is, it takes so much stress off of wanting to, all the calls, where is it? And I think that's something that the whole industry is really improving in. It's like, okay, this is where we're at. And it's, yeah, that's fantastic. So Phil, how about your side? How are you working with your clients? What does it look like?
Well, in regards to those integrations that it was centered around, it's a partnership, and it's an ever-growing, evolving partnership with, whether it be, the 3 that, here, Qualia, Tracker Pro, AccuTitle, working with them on an ongoing basis and evolving with them, right? As their software evolves, how you will interact with it evolves, and it's a partnership. It really is. I remember when we first started partnering with one of the companies I just mentioned. We had both promised each other that as we work together, we would never say, if we got a phone call from our client, we would never say, oh, that's their fault. Go deal with them. We would take the information and we would call our partner and work in hand with our partner to solve the problem, because at the end of the day, the client just wants the problem solved, right? They want that the issue, that whatever it is they're having, they don't want me pointing my finger at them and them pointing the finger back at us. So I think the most important piece of the integrations with the various title softwares out there is a true partnership between the companies, and not just the companies, but the human beings within those companies truly working together, always having the mentality and the sight. What we're really working on is to solve the problem, for our client, whatever issue they may be having, whether it's us delivering the searches back in, whether the order coming in, wherever the issue is, ultimately they just want their problem solved, right? And I think when you have true partnerships, like we have with the 3 companies that I just mentioned, and I won't mention any others because those 3 sponsored this event. If I haven't mentioned anybody else, Andrew Zankel may punch me. So I'll not mention anybody else. But those 3 in particular, we have tremendous relations. We're still building ours with Qualia. And my experience, again, like as I'm now working with Qualia and the staff there, they've been really great to work with. And again, it's that true partnership that then you can build towards, some of the facets that Pat, outlined. But again, without that true partnership and working together, you never get to some of those other areas that Pat outlined, or even where we are today. We're trying to maybe get here. We're here today. Well, how do we even get here? Because, we worked together, way back when, and truly try and again, always keep our eye on what's best for our mutual client. And then ultimately our business grows and their business grows and everybody wins. And that's kind of been our
Everyone's
approach.
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, at Qualia, I think when people think about technology, there's often a fear that it's going to take their jobs, but really technology is such an enabler. Like these relationships between companies, clients, people, they're not going to go away. They're such an important part of these businesses. And the technology platforms just help make people more secure, more efficient, and so they can spend more time on the relationships and delivering good service. And so I'm really glad you spoke to that, because that's something we believe really strongly at Qualia while we're driving towards efficiency and transparency. We're really trying to enable the people who are doing the good work. So we're running low on time, but I want to ask one final question, which is predictions. I wanted to hear, what does 2020 or 2021 look like? Pat, what do you think?
2021. Well, I'll sort of give you sort of the financial forecast first. I mean, I think that by and large, while rates will stay low, certainly historically low, that in the second half of the year we're going to see some fairly significant decline on the refi front. So for transaction volume should decline just from its historic levels. Purchase volume should continue to rise modestly. I think we're getting through the second wave of COVID right now. Okay. And as vaccines roll out, I'm bullish that end of Q2, the world will hopefully start to return to a little bit like normal. In terms of sort of from a technology front, we're certainly working on a single sign-on, and that would enable our customers to be able to log into our systems with their credentials, right? So no more of this, hey, we're going to administer passwords and usernames. We're building a system so that we can incorporate our local customers, record repository and credentials. So I think that's pretty exciting. As I mentioned earlier, kind of integrated exam workflow. So being able to incorporate all these disparate aspects of what an exam requires. We do that search locally in-house for customers. And are looking at potentially marketing that as well to our customers as we refine that. Higher degrees of integration between partners, and that's both customer to customer as well as software partners like Qualia. I think you're going to see more consumer direct channel business, right? This iBuyer and all these other folks out there that are marketing directly to consumers. I think that's going to be a challenge for folks who don't embrace that. Increased auto decisioning. I do think that reducing cycle time, right, is going to continue to be part of our world, and making our clients' lives easier. And the other area that I would mention, I do think that the sort of the regulatory and government position on protecting consumer information is going to be increasingly a challenge. We have the CCPA out in California, which of course is national. Daniel's Law, just recently passed in New Jersey, where folks can redact their information. And there's a companion piece on the federal level. Menendez and Booker, New Jersey senators, have introduced legislation at the federal level to allow public servants to redact their information from the public record. So, I think that constructive notice and the role that public records play in the real estate space is not widely known within the legislative community. And sadly, I think that's probably, we're going to be facing a little bit more of that as well.
All right. Phil, over to you.
Yeah, so just, I look at it more from just a more local standpoint in my view. I just, with everything that's happened, so many people, so many of my clients now doing what we did, right? You're going remote, and that's worked. Again, via technology, right? That again, before we started, we were talking about it, had this pandemic hit 15 years ago, it would have been so different, whereas so many of us and our clients who, because of technology, could go work remotely, if it was 15 years ago, what would have happened when they couldn't have done that? So, I just have spent the last 17 years going and visiting, title agents here in New York. And they're all kind of set up the same. There are these bullpens where, people are working together, whether it be a physical file that's getting passed along, or even now via the system, but there's an exchange, there's a bullpen, there's exchanging ideas, teaching, what happens going forward? For me, the question is, and again, technology is a piece of it because we have via these softwares, via the technologies out there, do these bullpens go away, right? Or do people come back to them and working in the office? For me, that's going to be a really interesting piece that will affect how title agents move forward over the next few years. Another piece that, I know there's another segment on it, so I'll just touch on it, having these remote closings, digital closings, that in New York, we didn't have up until the pandemic and now do, and now the public has gotten a taste of it. So as they move forward, are people going to say, hey, I don't want to drive an hour to my attorney's office and sit in the conference room for 4 hours, and I can sit here in my office, sit home, and do it. Does that get pushed more? Does, do we move back to what we were before, or do we go to these digital closings? Because again, the public now has a taste for it. Do they demand it? And our clients will have to react to that either way. So those are just two components that as we, and I agree with Pat, I'm hopeful that in Q2 that as the vaccines start to get out there, that we do start to normalize, pray. And I'd be curious, those two things, how those two factors work out as we move forward and come out of this nightmare that we've all lived through for the last 10 months.
Yeah. Well, that's all the time we have. I so appreciate Pat and Phil, your perspectives, your insights, and I know everyone in the Northeast are big fans of yours. So thank you for spending time with us, and for everyone who attended. Have a great rest of your day.
Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.